Someone is going to tell you to click off this video. Maybe it's a comment you'll see later. Maybe it's a friend who sees it in your history. Maybe it's even that little voice in your own head right now telling you this is too negative, too dangerous. And you know what? They're right. It is dangerous. Because what we're about to talk about today has the power to completely dismantle the reality you've been sold. I'm talking about months, even years of your life that you've spent confused and blaming yourself. Every single heartbreak that left you wondering, what did I do wrong? Every betrayal that felt like a knife in the back from someone you trusted with your entire world. Every single moment you looked in the mirror and thought, I'm not good enough. When the truth is, you were playing a game where the rules were written for you to lose. There was a philosopher, Arthur Schopenhauer, a guy who lived 200 years ago, who wasn't just some dusty academic, he was a ruthless observer of human nature. And he didn't just predict the modern dating apocalypse we're all living through, he drew a map. He mapped out your exact path of suffering before you were even a twinkle in your grandfather's eye. What you're about to hear isn't just a theory from an old book. Think of it as your survival guide, your escape plan. So do me a favor, just for a second, close your eyes and really imagine this. Picture a young guy. Let's call him Noah. Noah is a good dude. He spends his entire 20s, the prime of his life, chasing the dream that society drilled into his head since he was a kid. Find the one. You know the script. Build a life together, get the house, the dog, live happily ever after. He does everything he's told he's supposed to do. He invests everything, not just his money, which is a lot, but his time, his energy, his future. He makes himself emotionally vulnerable, opening up in ways that feel terrifying but necessary because that's what he's told a good partner does. And what does he get in return? A string of relationships that leave him feeling drained, used, manipulated, or just discarded, like an old toy. By the time he's 35, the fairy tale has completely imploded. He's divorced, his finances are an absolute wreck, and the person he sees in the mirror is emotionally hollowed out. He's a shell of the optimistic man he used to be.
Now, open your eyes and ask yourself, honestly, how many Noahs do you know? How many men have you seen follow that exact path? This isn't some rare, tragic anomaly. It's a pattern. It's a system. And Schopenhauer saw it all coming 2 centuries ago. In his groundbreaking essay, The Metaphysics of Love, Schopenhauer takes a scalpel to the fairy tale of romance and dissects it with brutal, surgical precision. He argues that what we call love, that intoxicating, all-consuming feeling, is nothing more than nature's most brilliant trick. It's a biological illusion, a powerful cocktail of chemicals released in your brain with one single purpose: to propagate the species. That feeling of euphoria when you meet someone new, the obsession, the way you can't eat, can't sleep, the poetry, the songs, the grand romantic gestures. According to Schopenhauer, all of it is a beautiful, shimmering mirage. It's your brain's way of getting you to sign on the dotted line and ensure the next generation gets made before the harsh, cold light of reality has a chance to set in. But here's where the story gets much, much darker. Modern society didn't just inherit this illusion. It took that illusion and it weaponized it. It built institutions around it. Schopenhauer issued a chilling warning. He said that as women gained more social and legal power, which was a completely radical idea back in his time, the very dynamics of love and marriage would shift. He predicted it would transform from a relationship based on mutual duty and survival into a system of transactional exploitation. He wrote, and this is a direct quote, "Women are directly adapted to act as the nurses and teachers of our childhood precisely because they themselves are childish, frivolous, and short-sighted."
Now hold on, before you click away or dismiss that as pure, indefensible misogyny, just take a breath and consider the point he was making, not as an insult, but as a structural analysis. He was observing what he saw as the fundamental biological and psychological nature of the sexes, and warning what would happen if society ignored it. And then he pointed to the legal system of his time as proof. Consider this historical fact. In 1850, if a man in Europe got divorced, he stood to lose everything overnight: his children, his property, his reputation. His ex-wife, however, often faced no material consequences. Schopenhauer saw this, and he called it what it was: the legalized robbery of male labor. Does that sound at all familiar? Fast forward to today. The data is undeniable. Nearly 80% of all divorces are initiated by women, and in the process, the average man loses half of his net worth, assets he spent decades of his life building. Let me tell you about Friedrich, a real merchant from the 19th century. He thought he'd made it. He married a respectable woman from a good family, only to discover she was secretly funneling money from his business accounts to bankroll her lover's lifestyle. When Friedrich found out and filed for divorce, who do you think the court sided with? They sided with her, citing her fragile nature as a justification for her behavior. Friedrich lost everything. He died broke and alone in a workhouse. Now just replace 19th century Germany with modern family court. The names have changed, the clothes are different, but the script is eerily the same. You have been raised, conditioned, and programmed from birth to believe that love is your salvation, that being vulnerable is a strength, that sacrificing your own needs and desires for a partner is noble. Schopenhauer would literally laugh at that naivety. He wrote, "A man's happiness is to do what he wills. A woman's happiness is to will what he does." Let that sink in. The system isn't broken. It's not a mistake. It is working exactly as it was designed to extract resources, time, and energy from men and redistribute them to women.
But what if I told you this prophecy, this map of your suffering, goes even deeper? What if I told you that it's not just about bad dates and unfair divorces? We're about to expose how modern psychology, the social media you scroll every day, and even the law itself are all interconnected parts of a massive engine, a machine designed to keep men enslaved to a system that fundamentally despises them. And the darkest truth of all? You've been unknowingly complicit in your own destruction. But your escape begins now with one forbidden idea. We're going to get into that right after this. You wake up every single morning in a world that is sending you a very clear message. It's on your phone. It's in the movies you watch. It's in the articles you scroll past. The message is that your masculinity is toxic, your natural desires are predatory, and your worth as a man isn't measured by your character, your integrity, or who you are as a person. It's measured by what you can provide, by what you can give. This is not an accident. This is not some organic evolution of society. This is a meticulously crafted system, a system of subjugation that Schopenhauer saw coming with terrifying, ice-cold clarity. He wrote, and I want you to really hear this, "The more a man is imbued with the knowledge of his own worth, the more he must resist the tyranny of women."
Let that word sink in. He didn't say partnership. He didn't say love. He said tyranny. So how does this tyrannical system operate? It has three main branches. The first is the psychological front. Modern psychology has been turned into a weapon. Let's start with a term you've probably heard a million times: emotional labor. Now, this term actually started out as a legitimate feminist critique. It was about the unpaid, unrecognized work that women often do in the home: managing schedules, remembering birthdays, soothing egos. Fair enough. But in the last decade, it has morphed into a psychological cudgel, a weapon used to bludgeon men into a state of perpetual guilt and servitude. You are constantly told to open up, to be vulnerable, to share your feelings. It's the new mantra of the enlightened man.
But here is the brutal, unforgiving truth that Schopenhauer exposed 2 centuries ago. Women, on a deep, biological, primal level, despise weakness in men. Don't take my word for it. In 2019, a study was published in the Social, Psychological, and Personality Science Journal, a real peer-reviewed study. Researchers found that when men express vulnerability, specifically feelings of sadness or fear, women perceive them as less attractive, less competent, and less desirable as long-term partners. The researchers gave it a clinical, sanitized name, the weakness penalty. Schopenhauer just called it the natural order of things.
The researchers gave it a clinical, sanitized name, the weakness penalty. Schopenhauer just called it the natural order of things. Let me make this real for you. Meet Oliver. He's a 28-year-old software engineer, a smart guy, a good guy. His girlfriend of 3 years, someone he thought was his life partner, kept insisting that he needed to share his deepest fears with her. She wanted to know his real self. So one night, after a few drinks, feeling safe and drunk on the illusion of trust, he did it. He confessed everything. He told her about his childhood trauma, the bullying, the intense loneliness, the nights he cried himself to sleep as a kid. She hugged him. She told him she loved him for being so brave. 2 weeks later, she broke up with him. And her exact words, the words that would haunt him for years, were, "I'm sorry, I just don't see you as strong anymore." This is not an outlier. This is the rule. This is the vulnerability trap. They demand you open the door to your soul, only to slam it shut on your fingers once you do. As Schopenhauer warned, a woman's love is conditional on your strength, your performance. A man's love is sacrificial. And sacrifice, when it is constantly demanded but never reciprocated, is just slavery by another name.
Now, if psychology is the velvet glove that coaxes you into the cage, the legal system is the iron fist that locks the door. Schopenhauer wrote, "Marriage is a trap set for men by nature and perfected by society." Let's talk about no-fault divorce. It was introduced in the 1970s, and it was sold to the public under this beautiful banner of gender equality and freedom. It was supposed to liberate women who were trapped in unhappy or abusive marriages. But the data, the cold, hard numbers, tell a radically different story. In the United States, nearly 80% of all divorces are initiated by women. Research shows that in marriages where the wife earns more than the husband, the divorce rate skyrockets by a staggering 50%. In the aftermath, men lose, on average, 50% of their net assets and lose in over 80% of child custody battles. This isn't equality. This is a system of legalized predation. Meet Robert, a successful surgeon in Florida. He married his college sweetheart and worked himself to the bone for 20 years. We're talking 80-hour weeks. He missed birthdays, he missed anniversaries, all to build their dream life. Then at 45, she walks in and says the 4 words that have destroyed more men than any war. "I'm not happy anymore." No infidelity, no abuse, just a feeling. The court awarded her the paid-off house, half of her retirement fund, and $4,000 a month in permanent alimony. Robert now lives in a small studio apartment. He's 62 and still working because he literally cannot afford to retire. He is funding the life of the woman who abandoned him. Schopenhauer's verdict on this kind of system? The law assumes men are guilty of existence. Finally, there's the third front, social media. Instagram, TikTok, dating apps. You need to understand these are not tools for connection. They are attention markets. They are digital coliseums where women auction their youth and beauty to an endless sea of bidders, and men are forced to bid with their validation, their money, and their dignity. Schopenhauer predicted this too, without ever seeing a smartphone. He wrote, "The more choices a woman has, the less capable she is of love."
Think about Jake, a 23-year-old college student. He matches with a girl on Tinder. They have great conversations. They seem to connect. He spends his limited student budget taking her on 3 nice, expensive dates. And then, nothing. She ghosts him. A month later, he's scrolling Instagram and sees her. She's in Bali on a luxurious vacation, arm in arm with some guy who drives a Lamborghini. And the caption under the photo? "Know your worth, queens." This is the paradox of choice. Women are drowning in a tsunami of options, making them incapable of genuine attachment, always looking for the next upgrade. Meanwhile, men are starving for a single drop of genuine affection, making them utterly disposable. But what if the ultimate prison isn't women, or the law, or even social media? What if the system's final, most brilliant trick is something deeper? This is where we expose the final, terrifying layer of Schopenhauer's prophecy, how modern men have been systematically brainwashed into worshiping their own chains. And the way out? It's darker than you think, and more liberating than you can possibly imagine. There is a silent holocaust happening right now. It's not on the nightly news. Governments ignore it, the media either mocks it or gaslights you about it, and society has been conditioned to accept it as normal. Every 30 seconds, somewhere in the world, a man takes his own life. In the Western world, male suicide accounts for 75%, 3 out of every 4 of all suicides. And here's the number that should stop you in your tracks. Divorced men are 8 times more likely to kill themselves than their married counterparts. This isn't just a statistic. This is a quiet, ongoing ritual sacrifice. And it's a sacrifice that Schopenhauer saw coming 200 years ago when he wrote, "The first 40 years of life give us the text. The next 30 supply the commentary upon it." The commentary is where you finally understand what happened to you, where you see how much you misunderstood the game. The devastating truth is most men never make it to the commentary.
You were born into a world that, on a systemic level, resents your very existence. From the moment you could speak, you were taught that your natural instincts, your drive, your ambition, your desire for respect are dangerous. You were told your ambition is oppressive, and you were taught that your suffering is not only unimportant, but probably deserved. But the cruelest trick of all, the master stroke of the system, is that you were trained to enforce it yourself. You became your own prison guard. Schopenhauer had a term for this: the will turned against itself. When a man is convinced that his own oppression is a form of justice, he becomes the perfect, self-policing slave. In 2018, a 32-year-old engineer named Marcus jumped from the 14th floor of his office building. The media reported it as another tragic, unexplained suicide. His suicide note was found on his desk. It read, "I'm sorry I wasn't enough. Not smart enough for my father, not strong enough for my wife, not rich enough for society." But here's what no one mentioned at his funeral. His wife had left him 6 months earlier, taking their daughter with her. A family court judge had ruled that Marcus could only see his own child twice a month under supervision unless he agreed to a massive increase in his child support payments. The last search on his phone, just minutes before he jumped, was, "How to disappear without debt collectors finding you." This isn't a personal tragedy. This is systemic extermination. This is the predictable outcome of a system built on 3 foundational lies that keep men in chains.
Lie number 1, love will save you. From Disney movies to romantic comedies, men are fed a constant diet of the myth that a woman's love is redemptive, that it's the thing that will fix you, complete you, and give your life meaning. Schopenhauer dismantled this mercilessly in his masterwork, The World is Will and Representation. He argued that the very love that promises you salvation is the thing that becomes the chains that ensure your servitude. Look at history. Look at Johann Wolfgang von Goethe, Germany's literary titan. At 23,
He fell obsessively, devastatingly in love with a woman named Charlotte Buff, who was already engaged. His torment, his pain, inspired his novel, The Sorrows of Young Werther. The book was so powerful, so emotionally raw, that it sparked a wave of copycat suicides across Europe. Men were literally killing themselves over a fictional character's romantic despair. What was Goethe's verdict years later, after he'd written the commentary on his own life? He said, "Love is an ideal thing, marriage a real thing. A confusion of the real with the ideal never goes unpunished." Modern men haven't learned this lesson. They are still mortgaging their entire futures for the temporary dopamine hit of a good morning text. Lie number 2, your value is your utility. You are told in 1,000 different ways that you only matter insofar as you are useful. You are a provider, a walking wallet. You are a protector, a human shield. You are a performer, an entertainer, a therapist, a handyman, a problem solver. Schopenhauer saw this clearly. Men are valued like tools, kept around as long as they are useful, and discarded the moment they become dull, broken, or a better tool comes along. A social researcher in 2021 conducted a simple, brilliant experiment. He created 2 fake dating profiles. The first one was Mark, 35, loves hiking, just got out of a long-term relationship, trying to figure life out. The second profile was Mark, 35, CFO at a tech firm, 6'2", owns a penthouse in Miami. The first profile, the human being, got 3 matches in a week. The second profile, the human ATM, got 147 matches in a single day. Women will claim they want vulnerability and connection, but their actions, their choices, scream one question and one question only. What can you do for me?
Lie number 3, you are the problem. This is the most insidious lie of all. The therapy culture, the self-help industry, the corporate HR departments, they all chant the same mantra: heal yourself, fix yourself, do the work. But this is a trap. Schopenhauer warned that to convince a man he is fundamentally broken is to sell him an unending subscription to repair services. Think about antidepressant prescriptions. In 1980, maybe 1 in 200 men took them. Today, in 2024, it's closer to 1 in 5. Has male happiness improved by a factor of 40? Or has Big Pharma simply succeeded in creating a permanent class of paying patients out of wounded men? There is a way out, but it is not easy. It requires what Schopenhauer called the denial of the will. This is not suicide. This is the murder of your illusions. It requires 3 steps. Step 1, become ungovernable. Delete the dating apps. Opt out of a legal system of marriage that is designed as a trap. When they call you toxic or fragile for setting boundaries, laugh. As Schopenhauer said, the free man is he who does not fear being alone. Your solitude is your fortress. Step 2, weaponize your suffering. Every great man you've ever read about in a history book transformed his pain into power. Beethoven went deaf and composed his greatest, most earth-shattering symphonies. Nietzsche endured a decade of crippling migraines and wrote "Thus Spoke Zarathustra." Van Gogh sold 1 painting in his entire life, yet he used his agony to revolutionize art forever. Your suffering is not your weakness. It is your fuel. It is the raw material for your greatness.
Van Gogh sold 1 painting in his entire life, yet he used his agony to revolutionize art forever. Your suffering is not your weakness. It is your fuel. It is the raw material for your greatness. Step 3, play the long game. Modern society is built to reward female youth and male maturity. A woman's peak sexual market value and leverage is generally between 20 and 30. A man's peak value, his power, his resources, his wisdom, is just beginning at 35 and can extend to 55 and beyond. Schopenhauer said that time humbles women and elevates men if they survive. Take the story of Hirohito, a Japanese salaryman who was fired at 40. Instead of despairing, he locked himself away for 5 years and mastered AI programming. At 50, he was hired as a high-level consultant in Silicon Valley, earning triple his old salary. His ex-wife, who had divorced him for not being ambitious enough, was working in retail. His secret? He said, "I stopped living my life on their clock. I started living on mine." Schopenhauer's greatest, most brutal insight wasn't about women or society or even suffering. It was this: most men would rather die than think, and that is exactly what they are doing. But you are different. You are still here. You are still watching. You are still fighting. That means there's a spark left. That means there's hope. If this brutal truth resonated with you, if you felt that fire light up in your chest, that click in your mind as the pieces fell into place, then do one thing for me. Show me you understand. Type "will" in the comments below. And if you're ready to go deeper, to stop being a spectator and start turning this philosophy into real-world power, then you need to watch this next video. Because what comes next isn't just knowledge, it's ammunition.